So today we're going to be looking at the midfielders, seeing who's the best to get, CDMs, centre mid, cams. Ignore the fact that half of these cards have got the stats going off them. I don't know why it's done that, but FUTBIN just seems to not work at the moment. But in terms of the cards that we've got a lot from the top to the bottom. Not everybody can afford the millions upon millions, which is fair enough. It's not like I'm sitting here with Hullet, Vieira and Matthias in the middle. So there is definitely going to be some players that are on that sort of level that can be played. And one that I personally really do like in this game is Milinkovic. I think with the Saudi League in general, they tend to get, after kind of Black Friday through to Team of the Year, they normally have at least a base level of players that you can obviously choose from.
If you need coins in FC25, lootbar.gg has you covered. They are the cheapest trading platform on the game, 8 to 10% cheaper than any others, 8% off if you use the code JT11 at the end at checkout, plus you get 5% extra on coins, with the fastest delivery system going, used by many FC25 creators such as Zorki, Manny Plus and even pro owners. So if you need any coins, head over to lootbar.gg, make sure JT11's in the promo code, and hopefully you enjoy.
When we look at Milinkovic as well, he's obviously coming in at 6'4", which is always fantastic. He has got very good stats across the board, which is nice. And if you went for something like a Shadow, 90, 87 and 90 on the pace, defending and physical, then already having some decent dribbling. Obviously agility balance could do with some work, but passing as well is at a decent level with his short and long if you look at the specific attributes to him. He doesn't have a playstyle plus, which is probably the only thing that goes against him, and I do think this card for me is one of them ones that is a great starter into the team of Saudi. When we look at the Saudi players in general, obviously CR7, Neymar is always going to be up the top there. Benzema coming in now with an FC Pro card. Talisca with a flashback. We've got a little bit of Ruben Neves and also Mane in the informs, as well as then Benzema and Ronaldo. But we also got a Aubameyang for a flashback as well. Throwing in a Diaby, a Savic, you've got yourselves a run of a start of a team really here. Now, obviously, when we do compare him to the top of the top, which is natural, we've got a lot of top-end sort of cards, would be looking at the likes of, like I said, Patrick, Hullet, and also Matthias. They are going to be the best in their position. Regardless of price, of course, they're going to be incredible in what they can actually do. They've all got the playstyle plus, they've all got role plus, and they've all got some very decent stats. Now, obviously, we know this just from playing with them for many, many years. They've always come out on top, and it's just how the game works. You look at a Hullet, he's 4.4 mil. Stat-wise, they are pretty decent across the board, but when you do compare him to someone like Savic, who has got them sort of stats across the board as well, when you think of one card being 17,000 and one being 4.3 mil, obviously Hullet has the aerial plus, so that's a big tick in his favour, but pace-wise is only 3 difference. Shooting, it's a big difference, I must admit. Passing is going to be quite different, but when you actually look in the actual kind of passing stat, if we can find it, we've obviously got more on the free kick accuracy. For me, that's not really any relevance to Savic. Crossing, again, not really there. Then we look at the vision. It's a bit more of an upgrade. And even the short and long. We've got 2 better on the short. We've got 4 better on the long pass. And then, 5 on the curve. If you do take it individually by stats, it's not that much better. Obviously, then the dribbling, very similar. Obviously, Hullet is going to kind of have a little bit more on that agility balance, both being very tall midfielders. And then the defending side of stuff, technically Savic is just as good, if not better, with the physicality. And he has got the 4-star, 5-star. So this is where looking at a card in actual kind of animations and then looking at their really in game makes that massive difference. I think Savic really is untalked about a lot, but I can understand losing out on that playstyle plus, not having necessarily the most key role pluses is where we're going to really fall down with someone like him personally. So obviously Hullet and Matthias and Patrick will always be at the top, that's fair enough. And just one more on Savic, he's got the box-to-box plus playmaker and then holding, and then has the deep line playmaker. Whereas Hullet, for instance, he's kind of across the board with everything. He can play striker, centre mid and cam. And he has got the shadow striker plus, box-to-box plus and advanced forward plus. So really, his position has now definitely changed. Whereas if we look at someone like a Matthias, he's got himself the box-to-box plus, ball-playing defender, because he can obviously play in that centre-back role, and then the deep-line playmaker as well. So it's very interesting when you go really in-depth with a card that you kind of just take them at the face value, because really, Savic is one of them cards that really puts in the shift, but in terms of animations, he's not going to beat out a Hullet, he's not going to beat out many of them top end icons. And if we were going to just put in the icons and heroes, because I try not to put too many in, because obviously we know where they are. Like they very rarely change. I like to put in the on the day icons, the Centurions, soon to be Thunderstruck, because at least they're brand new, they're fresh. Sometimes they can either be technically downgraded like Varane, or upgraded like Robbie Keane, in fact, with kind of going down a grade, but then getting a bit more pace, a little bit less shooting. It kind of changes the element of the card. So if I was kind of looking across the board, I think it's quite easy that S in Makelele would be in that S category. I do like Rijkaard and Petit still in this game, but they are definitely one under in terms of a CDM, in my opinion. I think Lampard would probably be about the same there as well, especially with Gerrard. The two, in fact, that are very interesting in this game that do hold their price, which I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of them. I don't necessarily use a sole kind of cam or cams in my team. I normally start with a very bog standard 4-4-2. I like a midfielder, like a box-to-box, a Valverde, a Bellingham, a Hullet, a Matthias, somebody that's going to do the job up and down. So cams really don't go into my forte in terms of games, but I can understand holding a value is very difficult in this game, especially seeing as though he is in icon packs. I could kind of understand if like we're looking at someone like a Matthias, if he was a Hadji level, or at least like a 91 where they've not been in an icon pack, meaning you're only going to get them from the pack, so the supply is going to be very little in comparison to your 87, your 88 and your 89 icons. And then heroes, they've just been across the board, to be honest. But then also Riquelme as well, holding a value at least a little bit more than I thought it'd be absolutely complete discard. No one's ever buying him. The only problem with him for me personally is that Flair Plus. It's just really not enough to get him going for me. Whereas at least with Hadji, who's got the power shot, can obviously hold on his own in that cam role, and probably puts in a little bit of a shift at least. So I would go for someone like where have I put them? Hadji, I would go into more of an A+. Whereas Riquelme, to be honest, I'd be starting to look at a really bottom for him. We have got some more icons. We'll put them at the bottom, especially when it comes to the bases. We'll talk a little bit more about the Centurions, as obviously they are technically new to this list. We've got Foudy, we've got Baggio, and then there's all the rest here that are obviously at the top. Zico, Bobby Charlton, Cruyff. Cruyff due an SBC this weekend, which is going to be very, very interesting for that sort of card, because he is obviously a top, like he's a top icon. We know that for a fact. When it comes to price for him, we are looking at 10.4 million. Wow, is that a spike or? It's got to be a spike then, because he's what, 4.6? Is he just not priced right at the minute? I've got a feeling that is just completely bogus. I don't think anyone's buying him for that. No, I was going to say, there is, it's just a random spike. He's not that much. I was going to say, 10 million, like, he's a very good player, but he's definitely not been 10 million for a while. So, looking at kind of the icons that we've got in the bases, obviously Cruyff, Pele would always go up to the top. I think Zidane obviously holds his weight there. When we look at the likes of Zico and Bobby Charlton, they normally hold their weight pretty well. We look at a Zico at 2 million, obviously the Dead Ball Plus. He's going to be during, he's going to be coming out during Thunderstruck as well. So he's going to be another very, very good card that's going to come to the game. The problem is like we've had with a lot of these icon heroes and top end of these special cards, the promos, is they're just not packable. We're very much really, really trying to find the low end at this point. So I'm hoping that Thunderstruck is going to be that change where we actually get the ability to pack some. I'm not saying that everybody's going to get a Bobby Charlton, a Zico, well, I suppose everybody could get a Cruyff of the SBC, but like a Zidane who is due to come in Thunderstruck, but at least put them at the point where they are at least obtainable in some way. So that's going to always be interesting. I do think they both will come in sort of in that top end. To be honest, I probably would still keep them in the absolute kind of top echelons at the moment. They are just the best. Zola will obviously go up to the top. I think Sawa will as well. Faudi's been incredible. Kaka, Socrates or Socrates, everyone. I never know. How do you pronounce him? Is it Socrates or Socrates? I hear a couple of different pronunciations, but they're kind of always different for me. Perlo with the long ball plus, Xavi, Del P, and then Abile is going to go up in there. I think that's a pretty standard icon list. I think they are still very much in that top end at the moment. We seem to kind of regress in icons at the moment because we've not had a good icon SBC until we get Cruyff. We've not really had, well, I suppose we've had a good amount of icon packs, but it just feels like the weight on them has been very, very hard. Like, it's been very difficult to try and get. The one that I would say has been actually relatively decent is the heroes, to be fair to them. Now, we do have quite a few of them in the mid as well, and some of the new ones, like obviously Hamsik with Matuidi, they have been pretty decent. Even Schneider, I know we got him last year. We've got JJ, Abide, and I think and then we've obviously got Keebler as well. The rest are obviously track star heroes that again are brand new to the game. When we look at the kind of top of these, I think everybody's looking at your Yayas. We're looking at your Schneiders, to be fair to him. I think he's been absolutely excellent since he's joined the game. And they all are at a certain level. Like now, we are starting to get a lot more hero packs. I think we are due to get a hero player pick at some point, which normally means higher, not necessarily higher valued player picks that you get, but they normally are better than just a single card. So that's going to be very interesting to see. And to be honest, whether I think any of these now are in this absolute top at the moment, I'd probably say in S+, they're probably all dropped down a little bit now. We're seeing Hamsik drop down massively from what we were. Matuidi's definitely taken a massive decline as well. When we look at what they kind of were at, most of them chilling at the mill, just under. Obviously, Yaya was considerably a little bit more. I think obviously everybody's waiting for the upgrades as well. I think that's due this Friday. But when you look at a Yaya, he was like 1.5 mil for quite some time. And then as we've got more hero packs, he has dropped down a fair whack. One that I've not really kept up on the price is Ramirez, to be honest, 635. And then we did get Wesley from a hero pack, 289. It's crazy the difference a big pack can actually have. But I do think when we look at kind of like the top cards, they're still obviously up there. They always will be. If we were going, the one that I am actually really disappointed with this year, and again last year, I think he was exactly the same, was Marquisio. No playstyle plus, just very good stats, but still very bog standard. And it's so weird to see because we had the same last year. I think we got the, what is that? That is, I can't remember what card that is. Whatever the card, but let's have a look. We'll click on it. It is Hero. It's helpful, isn't it, when it doesn't show you? I can't remember what that card was, but when we got to obviously the end of the game, the footies, it's fantastic, but we already have cards like that. When you look at the generations prior, the 88 obviously World Cup was fantastic. We then got into this card and he just felt better. And then obviously once we got into the footies, a 98 Marquisio was always going to be fantastic. Whereas this year, he needs that big upgrade quick. He really does, because I'm really not feeling too much about him. Obviously, Schneider will go to the top, to be honest. I'm very happy with Matuidi, JJ, and also Abide. They've all been very, very good cards this year, as we've known for many, many years with them. Obviously, Abide coming in at 312 there. Okocha did get a new version as well, but I do think he's kind of on that same sort of wavelength. Only a little bit increase on every stat bar from the physicality getting a plus 10, but even then it only takes it to 70. He is a 4-star, 5-star still, and then obviously he did get the quick step, which for me was a big, big upgrade for JJ. Now, some people really like the Trickster. I'm not necessarily that big of a fan of it. I think it's got its moments, but it's very far and few in terms of when you can actually use it. So I would still probably keep his normal card as an S level. I wouldn't necessarily go too far up there. When we look at the rest of the heroes, I think that was all the track stars. And we got Donovan, in fact. Donovan weren't a bad card. He's kind of just going on that American hype at the moment because obviously Smith, Swanson, Rodman, Dunn, O'Hara. Like, there's actually quite a decent American team you can make. You've also got Horan as well in this list. 62,000. Obviously coming in with a quick step, which is nice. Kind of more striker or right mid-based, more so than a Cam in my opinion. I'm not necessarily bursting with a Cam. I'd kind of like the incisive more so than anything, but that again goes down to how you personally play. Him for himself would be kind of just in that bottom category, regardless of obviously the price of him. I know a lot of the time it tends to be that the higher price cards do go up in the higher rankings, which normally is the case. There's a reason for that. The supply and demand doesn't lie on a market. That there's a reason why so many players are more expensive than others, and sometimes it can be like looking at stats and thinking, well, they're very similar, but then you've got to go into body type, you've got to go into the accelerate type, you've got to go into animations, and it just gets very complex to think, why is Yaya less than Hullet? Why is Hamsik not as good as Zico? There's so many different stats that you can go to it, and then in footers it really doesn't matter. Everybody's pretty much just as good as the others. You just go for the 99 basically. But then finishing off the rest of the icons, obviously we have got Varane and Xabi Alonso, as both of them are SBCs. Now, I think Varane was actually quite a nice upgrade for him, and it was the first icon SBC, so you kind of was put into it very gently. Like, the upgrade is nice. I'd say that's a pretty solid upgrade for him. He's still got the incisive pass, managed to get the 4-star, decent stat upgrade, a little bit of pace, defending, dribbling, bit of physicality, bit of shooting. I don't think they've gone too far with that card. Like, obviously they're not going to make him into a 91, 90 rated card so early on in the game. Of course they're not, but I think Varane always needs that kick up the rear, because realistically he's not that card that you want, really. I think pricing wise is respectable, especially during Thunderstruck. We're going to get a lot of upgrade packs if they do follow the same pattern, so that was fair enough, and that was kind of it. Then obviously we got, who do we get next? We got Zanetti, who again was not a bad card. Is not personally my favourite as a right back. If it was a CDM, I could possibly get behind it. But they've kind of gone very similar to Varane, played it a little bit safe, kind of just gave him that little bit of an upgrade as a right back, gave him the rapid plus rather than relentless, I think he has. And I'm like, okay, that's fair enough. And then they did the same again. We need somebody. Like, we had Blanc. We had a couple of other relatively decent icons at this point, and it just feels like they've gone really safe. I love the On This Day icon. I think that's a great design. It's a great card. But in terms of what they're actually doing, Keane wasn't a bad shout, but it's a very obvious one. Less rating, more pace, less shooting, bit more physicality. Jobs are good. And like, that's fair enough. That was always what they're going to do with strikers. But when we've got the likes of Xabi Alonso, obviously he's gone up by 1. Great pace upgrade, which is fantastic. But why don't we change the card fully? Like, give him an enormous pace upgrade. Take off a little bit more on the defending. Take a bit more off, obviously, on the physicality side of stuff. Make him into more of a shooter. Make him more into a solid DM with pace. Try something a little bit different with him. Now, obviously, again, he got the 4-4 upgrade, long ball pass, all of that jazz. It's a very safe card, in my opinion. It's not necessarily a crazy card, and it's not necessarily a terrible card. And I think that's the problem with them. We haven't got anybody that is worth doing as of yet. Now, obviously, this is in hindsight. We now have Cruyff and also somebody else, Raul. I'm pretty sure Raul's getting one as well. Big cards. That is exactly what we want. But like, I saw a tweet, it's like they've given us now the content we want. Now everybody's going. So it's like, well, is this going to be enough to bring people back? If Cruyff is 2 mil, are people truly coming back for bad gameplay to finish a card that probably takes a couple of months in very little time, but then big cost on SBC? It's going to be a very interesting one this Friday. But going back on track, Xabi Alonso, I think he's a decent card. He's probably a little bit better than Varane, in my opinion. I think Varane is a wonderful card, but there's just something about him. His animation just does not work, in my opinion. We then did get someone absolutely massive. Fowdy obviously will go in there, but we did get a David Beckham Centurion. Now, obviously, he's in the team rather than an SBC, obviously, and he can play in that centre mid role. Again, like the Xabi Alonso's, like plenty of other cards, great pace upgrade, bit of defending up there, and in terms of a centre mid, he's absolutely wicked. I think he is a fantastic card. Now, obviously, when we look at the centre mids, he isn't necessarily top 1%, obviously, but when it comes to an upgrade, I think they've done well. They've given him the incisive pass. They've given him a 4-star, 4-star. The roles have now gone into a playmaker and half winger in the centre mid. He can still play the winger plus. Not necessarily my sort of winger, especially with the incisive. If he had like quick step, I think as a right wing, that would be fantastic. But in a centre mid, it works really well. So I think with Beckham, he would happily go into a very comfortable S in this. We've then got Schweinsteiger and Laudrup as well from the Centurions. Two, again, moderate cards, nothing necessarily too crazy with them. Laudrup, very much like Varane, needs a big upgrade. He's just not there, unfortunately. He's got a slight upgrade, to be honest. He has managed to get a 5-star weak foot, which is always fantastic, but they did keep his Trickster Plus as well. So it's a very hit and miss sort of card in my opinion. I think he's kind of just there with the stats, and that's about it. Whereas Bastion did get a slight upgrade, which is nice. He's managed to get a bit of pace. Could have been more in my opinion. I think with 76 on the base, only going up to 78 could have been that little bit extra of an upgrade, but he has got himself the ping pass rather than the long ball. Whether you think that's a downgrade or not, I personally do. So it's an interesting one regardless. He did get the 4-4, which it seems to be they're giving out left, right and centre. So I think with these two cards, I'm probably being a bit kind of harsh on Varane there. He probably is actually more of an A+ at this point. He will drop down very quickly, but he's probably still there at this point in the tier. Then we've got a lot of the players. Now, we've already been talking for ages, so we're just going to blast through a lot of these. Foden is just one that I wanted to throw in here because obviously he is right wing originally, but he is due an upgrade. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Thunderstruck. I don't know if I've seen his name leaked. I've only seen Rashford at this point, kind of winger-wise, that's notable for me. But Foden needs an upgrade massively. He's a great cam with the potential. And more than likely, they are waiting to give him that upgrade because he is already 88 rated. It's going to be very little they can do in an 89, but he needs a better play style plus, a 4-4 at the absolute minimum. He is crying for an upgrade. I think he's still fantastic at what he does, but he has definitely dropped out of people's teams at this point. Looking at a few of the top gold and special cards, obviously Valverde does come to the list in my opinion. I wouldn't necessarily say he's kind of in that top card at the minute, but he's definitely up there with the best of them. And when you do look at the kind of midfielders, when we look at price-wise, kind of seeing who is next to these absolutely crazy icons, we are looking predominantly more at the special cards, at the like of Bellingham. We're looking at a Rodri that I think are fantastic at what they do. I don't know if I'd quite say if Bellingham's an S+ yet. I think his S+ will come during Team of the Year. I think he's a great card, all three versions of him. He's obviously got the gold, he's got the inform, and then he does have the 91 somewhere. There it is. They are very good cards, all of them with the Relentless, which is not necessarily my favourite playstyle plus, but I think most definitely he can't be any more than an S at this point with the 91. Now, obviously, the difference between the 91 and also his Road to the Knockout, it's ones. There's literally just ones between them. Obviously, he's still live, so that's going to have a massive factor in them. So I do think the inform does come in at that sort of top level, but I am getting a little bit more disappointed with that gold every time. And even if it is just a 1 stat or 1 overall, 3 on the pace, 2 on everything else, 3 on the defending, it does make a difference. It really does. But the Relentless for me is the one thing that needs to take him up that level. Rodri, on the other hand, wonderful upgrade. This is kind of what we want from Rodri. Now, we did get a little bit spoiled because obviously during Rodri's kind of Centurion upgrade, we did have the Ballon d'Or, and that card is a joke and a half. I come up against him, which clearly some people really like the Rodri rather than taking the Mbappe, and he is everywhere. This is what we kind of expect from the Team of the Year, which is naturally going to come in January, and more than likely that card is going to be 99. So that's going to be incredible in himself, but regardless, this is the upgrade we needed. From the gold Rodri that, to be honest, was usable to some extent. The pace upgrade is massive for him. Taking a plus 14, great dribbling, great defending, great physical and passing. With the Bruiser plus, it's not my favourite, but it still works for him. He is a massive upgrade on that gold card that, to be honest, at this point now, I'd be putting next to a sort of Bellingham sort of level. Then obviously we've got the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, another one that is probably due a big upgrade in general. Now, he did get the total rush, which obviously saw his pace go up 13. This is kind of what I'm saying when we look at a Kane, a Lewandowski, a Rodri, a De Bruyne. They got their big pace upgrades on their very first card, meaning their next card should be even better. I'm not saying they're going to get a plus 13 pace upgrade again, but most definitely it's going to be even more of a better card than we have seen from this total rush. Now, I don't think De Bruyne's quite in that top level of an S+, but he definitely comes up there in the best of them, to be honest. And I think most of these kind of centre mids, even when we look at a Putellas, very similar. 5-star, 5-star, great stats across the board, but I don't know if I'd choose her over any of the kind of centre mids that we've got. If we look at a Matthias, we look at a Hullet, they are going to be my choices every time. So putting her in that sort of category, I don't think would really suit. Let's see if we can pin these images. That's a bit more easier. Bonmati, another fantastic upgrade. Obviously, when we're looking at the kind of specials, they are still putting themselves up there. And I think Putellas would kind of put her normal gold card into an S, whereas Bonmati is kind of that funny one that she's technically a higher rated, and yet she seems to be worse, which is just mental in itself. Obviously, she doesn't have that 5-5, which is fair enough to kind of have the comparison. But when we're looking at a 70-80k difference in price, it is crazy. And Bonmati was kind of one of the first ones to really take out. Patry, still absolutely incredible with the long ball plus. Definitely took a hit. She's got her inform, which is just a 1 upgrade as well. And I do put her in that top category with that long ball plus. But you can see it slowly fading out of existence because the stats need to be better overall. Which then we look at kind of some of the kind of lower cards. We look at like an Odegaard now, definitely coming down. He's got the incisive pass, which holds him so far, but it doesn't necessarily take him into that top. I think Sissoko as an 85 would be around the lower A+, but the 86 definitely pushes himself to the top of the pile. It definitely doesn't go in the S, but it will put him into a very, very good pile of these cards where it's like I said, if you've not necessarily got the expense to buy these icons, these top-end specials, he's going to do just fine. Now, obviously, you'd still prefer we got a Makalele or a top-end Bellingham over him, but when we look at kind of being efficient with price, it works really well. Same with the likes of a Lamar. He's kind of coming in a little bit lower, but he's kind of waiting for that evolution. At 50, 60,000 coins, he's one of them cards that is worth just putting a little bit of investment in and waiting for that upgrade. Kind of the same with a lot of these cards now. When we look at the lower rated, so that we look at a Cherki, we look at like a Dunn. When we get to that point where evolutions are now hitting the 87s, the 88s, the 89s, the 90s, that's where these cards can kind of flourish. Now, we have had a few FC Pro Live cards, like a Gravenberch, like a Palacio, that come in really well to start with, but most definitely need the upgrade to stay a little bit more on the relevant side. Obviously, we got the Palacio Amrabat. I think both of them as DMs, very, very good for the price that you're paying. We see Simons kind of coming in more towards the top now with that kind of playstyle plus era, but they are due the upgrades as well, which is even more of a reason to have a look at them at the minimum. And why to store like all of the lower ones into your team, really. If they get 1 or 2 upgrades, it's at least better than nothing, to be honest. And when we look at the rest of these, like we look at a Tolisso, very good card, obviously like Lamar waiting for the upgrade, but that's all he's getting for right now. If Palacio doesn't get the upgrade for the FC Pro, then obviously we get to the point where we could just put him in an evolution anyway. So it's kind of that almost win-win scenario with him. Now, I'm not saying the evolution's going to make him into the next Hullet, but it most definitely puts him up in that list from a 13, 14, 15k card to maybe even just a 30 or 40. And that's kind of what we're seeing with a lot of midfielders in the evolutions is most of these have got gold cards that could predominantly go to 86. Now, it wouldn't necessarily be the best stat-wise, but it is a point that you can get these cards up there. Conte definitely coming in a little bit lower. We look at the likes of Dybala. I absolutely love him. The only thing that I really wish he had was the incisive pass. He obviously has got the first touch. It's one of them cards that I think really could have been that slightly bit better, and one that does provide a little bit more insight is going to be Wirtz. He has got the incisive and he's just absolutely wonderful with it. Now, I do think both of them are very similar. Obviously, live card Dybala got the potential to still go up, which is even better for him. And I do think he's going to end up with an incredible card in the future. We look at the likes of Brandt, he would be coming a little bit lower. Marta would be the same, I'd say. With the flair, she's got some decent stats across the board, but it's the flair plus that really lowers her down, in my opinion. We've still got the likes of Tchouaméni and De Jong that are incredible. Rutter, I'd still think he's incredible for the SBC that you paid, but he's definitely dropping down in terms of the cam. You're very rarely seeing a lot of these cards, and that's the kind of point. With a lot of teams at the moment, we're getting the same cards at this point in the game. Unless you've gone and got like a Patrick from an icon pack, or you've managed to get the coins for that, they are very much on that lower end now as well. We look at the Zacharias, we look at the Xhakas, they're kind of coming in there. To be fair, Xhaka actually is a wonderful card. I will give him that, to be fair to him. Musiala, kind of take my cap off with the fact that he's just so expensive for the upgrade that he got. It is one of them. Like, it's an okay upgrade, but for 400,000 coins, I would much rather wait for the next one. I just don't think that SBC is worth it. If you're having to go for a money aspect, if money's not a problem, I mean, it's a good card. It is a very good card, but I wouldn't necessarily go into the topper cards that I think technical for me just really doesn't sit very well. Palmer is another one, kind of now waiting again. He's got himself the Trailblazer, 4-star, 4-star rather than the 3-4. It did have a little bit of a Playstyle Plus upgrade with the incisive, which is nice, but again, like kind of the rest of them, he's waiting for the upgrade. I think now is kind of player of the month, other than maybe getting an evolution in the future, is kind of just sitting there, to be honest. Les or Les Mule, I can't remember how to pronounce his name. Nice card as well. Havertz, one of them ones that is just a very funny card. Like, he just doesn't suit the position of anything for me. He's got himself the 4-4. He's obviously got some nice stats. He's obviously a live card as well, which is even better. But no Playstyle Plus, kind of just in that no man's land at the moment, needs that big upgrade to take him to the next level. And Ndombele would go up, would go Loftus-Cheek. I think Talisca would be there. Cherki, again with the flair. It was the flair plus for Cherki, wasn't it? I think that was the bit that I was disappointed with. It's just, as much as his price does show, and he's got some decent stats, a 5-5. I just think he needed to have a better Playstyle Plus, in my opinion. Thuram at this point now is definitely down. Dunn would go up. Grace would be there as well. Stanway, it's the pinged pass. I think she would drop down for me. Same as Tonali. He, again, like Foden, is kind of just another talking point that needs that upgrade in the middle. Playstyle Plus added to him, an intercept, anything, a slide tackle, and anticipate, anything to put him in that CDM, and you've got another great Premier League CDM in there. Emery's going to be there. Bruno would be there. Oberdorf is obviously there with Haran, and then Modric, I'd actually go up one. I think passing-wise for Modric is unbelievable. A very, very unique card going in. The only thing, again, for him, for me, was going to be that technical plus. I really don't fancy the technical plus at all, so it is kind of one of that problem cards for me that I don't personally use. So that is going to be the list for the midfielders. Let me know down below what you think about them. Make sure you do like and subscribe on this, and I will catch you all for the next one. And we've got a big season coming tomorrow morning. Peace.